so it should be pretty simple. We'll probably move it here because you're going to end up looking at me.
That's it.
That should work.
I can look at you. I don't have to.
No, you don't have to look at the camera. You can pretend I don't exist if that's comfortable.
Yeah, I don't want to see me.
It's usually I usually do it. Like that's how the cameras are set up too. So we're talking to each other.
Yeah,
the benefit with the 2 camera setup that I always joke about is like if you have to itch your face or anything. If we do 1 camera, you're on camera the whole time, right? So even when I'm talking, it's like, oh no, I'm stuck. When the 2 cameras.
Now that you said that, I have an itch.
Yeah. Welcome to the Slightly Serious Sign Podcast, brought to you by Wensco Sign Supply, the #1 podcast in the sign and graphics industry for news, events, new products, and customer success stories. If you want to know what's going on or you want to grow your sign shop, you're in the right place. Here is one, some, or all of your hosts, Mike, Tyler, and Domingo. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Slightly Serious Sign Podcast. As you can see, we are not in the studio. We're here at the ISA show. This is the first episode that we're recording here. So we'll hear some background noise, but this gives us the opportunity to record some episodes that we wouldn't get in our studio. So hopefully you'll enjoy these next few episodes that we do here at the show. We have some cool guests lined up, including the one we're about to talk to now. So I'm excited to see what comes out of this. So do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Who are you? How long you been in the industry and kind of where you work, what your job is here?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Keith Verkem. We're here on the Colex booth. I've been with Colex about 7 years now. I've been in the industry since about 2010. So I kind of come from the photo industry, and that, like many of us, we transferred into wide format. So that's me. As far as my position here at Colex, I'm a senior product manager, so I manage all the products that we offer, the ones we manufacture, like the Sharp Cut behind me, as well as all the other products we have on the booth. Yeah,
the cool part about this is you can actually see, so the machine he's talking about is actually behind him on the camera. They were running it, well, you can actually see he's pulling the material off. They're running it literally right before we hit record. And then behind me, you can see some stuff that they've cut. They're working on assembling because the show starts here pretty soon. So that's pretty cool. One of the questions I like to ask, this is good with, especially when we're at the trade show, right, is kind of like to get it started, get people to know a little bit more about you, is related to food, because we always joke half the reason we travel is really just to eat, right? So if you could eat anywhere, where would it be?
Here in Orlando?
Anywhere. Doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's probably more about with who, right? So my daughter lives down here in Florida, in Tampa. So this show always gives me the opportunity to kind of, after the show, spend a few days with her. So she loves sushi, so I'm sure there's going to be a fair amount of sushi consumed.
Yeah, that's good though.
After the show.
Yeah. So where are you based out of then normally?
Yeah. So I'm based out of our headquarters, which is New Jersey.
Okay.
And that's where we manufacture this product. So it's a U.S. made product.
Okay. So the main question I always get, so a lot of our customers, we talk about this at a lot of our open houses that we do, but a lot of our customers are reluctant to go the router path, right? They may need it and they may outsource some of that work. But for the most part, they avoid doing that. And I don't know what the reason for it is, right? On
I was going to ask.
So what do you think is costing them the most time and money if they're currently don't have a router and they're doing full signage?
Yeah, so if they're doing contour cutting, right, which most sign shops are, not just doing squares and rectangles, right? Yep. So if they don't have this capability in-house, they have to outsource it, right, to somebody who has this kind of equipment. So that has a lot of pain points, right? You're not at the top of the list, right? For your customer, you're kind of at the bottom of whoever you're outsourcing it to. So what's funny is that outsourcing bill usually pretty quickly kind of justifies having a machine like this. And then you get all the control back, right? You can turn around things faster. The quality is going to be better. So that's the objection, right? Oh, it's a lot of money for a machine, but there's usually it ROIs very, very quickly. A lot of times under a year.
The one I always see have the biggest impact is there's a lot of times where if a customer doesn't have a certain type of equipment, they will kind of avoid doing that type of work, or on the other side, they'll kind of scale back what the customer wants, right? So they may be like, oh, I want this complex shape. And they'll be like, well, we can print the complex shape and kind of put it on and it'll look fine, right? And they may be able to convince a lot of customers to do that, but what you might not notice is the jobs you're losing because you're trying to steer customers to avoid doing it in the first place.
Yeah.
So I always find that interesting whenever somebody gets a new piece of equipment, whether that is a router or anything, how many more jobs come in naturally just because now they have the capability and they don't have to steer people, they can just offer it. So the other thing the question we always get is, if customers are looking, there's a lot of variability in the router market in terms of, you can start real low and go real expensive, right? And what kind of is the difference between some of the lower end, like flatbed cutter style stuff versus more of the router style equipment?
Yeah, so it's about application, right? So there's a lot of routers in the market that are specifically for CNC routing, right? So your denser materials, acrylics and wood and that sort of thing. Then you've got your knife cutters, right? That are, vinyl, banner, all of that kind of work. What we see is, or what we stand on is versatility of the product, right? So we don't just give you kind of one of those applications. The machine is built to handle all of those applications, right? So both a fast, nimble knifing platform, as well as like a heavy duty, durable CNC routing platform. So for our customers, right, you put in a sharp cut, you kind of can say yes to every job, right? Yeah. You kind of have the right tool. And just to back up on something you had said, because I often say it to customers as well, they'll pivot that, oh, well, we don't really do that, but we could do this instead. The problem is their customer is getting that work. They're just not getting it from that person, right? They're outsourcing it to somebody else who has the capability. So as soon as you now have that capability in-house, right, you're going to be, we see it, I see it, because I handle a lot of the demos and stuff for our customers. They buy for this reason. And then 6 months later, they're like, yeah, we're doing stuff we didn't even talk about during the sales process, right? So it opens up a lot of doors to a lot of applications.
That was actually going to be my next question. That's funny. Is how often do they come for one of those two, right? Whether that's because you can offer both, right? How often do they come for either the cutter or the router and end up actually using more of the other feature than the first one?
It's more than you would think. I mean, even just from a demonstration perspective, like I said, the customer can then, I do a lot of banner, I do a lot of decal work. So we're going through that process, right? And then it's like, well, if you have time, let me just show you some acrylic routing or some aluminum. Yeah. And it's always the same thing. Oh, we could do that too, right? Yeah. It's like, yeah, totally.
The one I always see customers that don't realize what it can do, right? I think a lot of them just look at, okay, my options are roll-to-roll cutter and flatbed cutter, right? And they don't fully understand the difference. When you walk someone through the workflow, especially on the where the table moves, right? And walk them through how the decals work and you cut the outsides out, like people's minds are blown. If they're doing perf cut currently, which is what a lot of them are doing, right?
Absolutely.
And perf cut is great, right? That's how we do most of our decals when we're doing them in the shop. But if you compare them in speed wise, like if anyone's doing a decent amount of perf work and they see it, they're just like, what are we doing here? Like we're wasting so much time. So I can imagine there's a lot of people that need it for the router capabilities, right? And then when they see the knife ability, or maybe when they get it in their shop and their install or their team sees the ability to cut vinyl, they're like, what are we doing over here? Let's put this on here. So I could see that being a pretty big draw. Is there other features that or things that people cut that are pretty common that they don't ask about during the demo process, but then when you walk into their shop, 6 months later, they're using it pretty regularly?
Yeah, I mean, this industry, there's a fair amount of materials, I would say, that are standard. Yep. All your PVCs, your MDF, I would say, is probably the most popular wood product in sign and display. Obviously, ACM and aluminum are road signs and that kind of stuff is pretty popular. So it's usually more a surprise because maybe they weren't doing that kind of work before, right? Because they didn't have that, that capability. But actually, what's behind you that PK is putting together for us was actually a program we did to our customers, which was, send us in, we're going to vote on it here at the booth, right? So send us in some cool stuff you've made on our cutter, right? Yeah. So that's kind of what that is, right? It's they I don't know what the program was, right? But they were able to make this with our cutter, cut out this shape and then assemble a dinosaur. Not too many customers come in and say, I need a machine to cut a dinosaur out. Yeah. But it's sort of, but it's a good example of, really the creativity is, it's pretty open-ended.
Yeah, there's always shops that I see doing just work that you didn't even think was possible with sign equipment. You just like look at that and be like, I know what equipment you have in your shop, and I still have no clue how you just made that thing. And I think a router gives you the ability to do a lot of that type of like 3-dimensional signage work that maybe you didn't have before. Right. So if you are someone who's doing, like if you have higher end clients that are doing, you know, just regular signage, right? They might be just doing pan faces right now, right? And you're just like, that's what we do. If you have router capability, you'd be amazed once you start offering it to them, the different types of signage that you can make that you didn't even kind of think about before, until a customer asks you a question and then you're like, I mean, probably we could do that. I don't know. We haven't tried it before. So I always find that interesting. But you brought up earlier that if you're outsourcing a lot of the work, oftentimes if you add that up, it usually makes sense to get a router pretty quickly. Is there other signs that a shop should look at getting their own piece of equipment versus outsourcing it?
So that's obviously an easy one financially to ROI for yourself. The other side of it, I think, is just capability, right? Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of customers, that they have good clients, right, that are doing X amount of business with them. If you can't offer some of those other things, it's not that they're not doing it, right? They're just getting it somewhere else, right? So usually it's pretty compelling, even for a customer to kind of look at their own customer base and say, well, if I had this capability, I could probably really easily win a fair amount of this work. So, especially if they have a good relationship with the customer and all that, right? So it's the business is already there for the taking. Yeah. So I think that's one of the stronger arguments, right? You mine your current well first. So having capability in-house. And again, it gives you control. It gives you the creative flexibility, like stuff like that, right? Hey, could we do this? And it's like, could we do this? Yeah, well, with this equipment, you could, right? You can say yes, and then you've got the, you've got the gear to pull it off. Yeah. I always look at, we deal with a lot of, we always joke that our bread and butter is small to medium-sized shops, right? Which oftentimes would not be a flatbed cutter or router company, right? But what I always talk about is I feel like one of those pendulums that moves you from small to medium to large is getting flatbed equipment in there, whether that's print or cut. And I think the reason is a lot of the bigger jobs need one of those two pieces of equipment, right? You either need flatbed printing to do the scale, or you need flatbed cutting to do the complexity and again, the scale just in terms of size that you may need. So do you see a lot of shops that maybe are smaller, and once they add that equipment, have the ability to scale up, not in terms of volume, but even just like employees and quantity of jobs that they're doing? Quantity of jobs they're doing for sure, right? So, even in small shops, the equipment makes sense, right? Because you think of a larger job, like you just pointed out, right? That's not, hey, I need 2 of this. It's like, oh, we need 100 of these, right? Yeah. That's labor. It's a lot of labor. So a lot of times a small shop just doesn't have the manpower, right? They're 3 or 4 people, right? They do a lot of work. As soon as you put devices in like this, a flatbed printer or a cutter or XY cutters, whatever it is, laminators, as soon as you kind of automate some of those processes, it means that those same people can actually produce a lot more work. Yeah. Right. So as an owner, that means a lot more bills go out. Right. So that's a good thing. So it definitely helps scale the business, because you start winning those bigger jobs. Right. That's when things start to scale. Yeah. We have a customer that has 3 employees maybe and has a Colex in there. Right. And is just rocking and rolling, right? There's a lot of business going in for the amount of people they have, but the reason is because a lot of those times they can just set it and forget it, right? They'll run these big jobs, and I always joke that his Colex is in the back of his shop, so sometimes you'll walk in, right, and you'll be talking to him, and then he'll be like, oh yeah, come back and see it working, and it's just back there by itself, and you're like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, yeah, it just runs back here. So yeah, I agree. I could see how that would be a huge. I think the other piece of that conversation is just repeatability. Right. So when you win these big jobs, right? I'm not advocating not having employees, right? Yeah. You need employees, of course, right? People make all this stuff work. But if you do the job by hand and cut it, and then I come in and I hand cut some of it, chances are we're both going to do a really good job, but they're not going to be exactly the same. Yeah. Just because we're human, right? Yeah. So that's where I think the machines help out a lot, right? So you could do a job today and then do a reorder in a month, and it's going to be exactly the same. Yeah. Right. So you're not trying to reinvent it every time, right? You can automate those processes so that you can turn things quicker.
Yeah, if I had to cut it by hand, the customer would send it back. That would not be good for anyone involved. Yeah, no, that would be a problem. But
I'd still be cutting, so.
Or that. I'd be back there. They'd be like, what are you doing? You'd be like, it's a 4x4 decal. I've been back here for like an hour. I can't get it. I don't know what to do. The other thing that I think scares people off is if they've seen anything online in terms of the software. I think sometimes that can look very intimidating, especially if you've seen them run where you can see all the individual lines and how deep it's cutting and all that stuff. How complex is this equipment to actually run? Is the software easy? What's that look like?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up, because it's kind of one of my charges here at Colex is simplifying things, right? So the software here is very, very easy to operate and learn. Right, so if you have sort of any little bit of experience just clicking a mouse, right, you can pretty quickly be very efficient at processing work. At this stage, we're integrated with all the popular RIPs. So from a print and cut workflow, it can be very, very automated. Where really the operator is just worried about, hey, is the blade in the unit, and hit play and go. Yeah. Right. So everything is kind of profiled and very easy to operate.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you guys, but I just want to take a minute to talk about Nakusa, the name behind our tape. Our tape's the #1 application tape out there, but they are more than just tape now. Nakusa has a full range of products out there. Their new one is called NextBond. This is a UV cured adhesive. Why does that matter? It's an eco-friendly and durable option, but comparable to most of the eco-friendly options, this is a cost-effective product. So if you're looking for an eco-friendly product or a durable product, or just in general a good vinyl, NextBond is going to be the one for you. This is available at Wensco.com as well as all of their other products. So check it out at Wensco or reach out if you have any questions. Oh, and don't forget to use your Nakusa bucks. I can say from my side, right? I had a customer help us cut out some really basic signage stuff, right? Like little wayfinding signage. And so we're setting up the file. I've never used one before, right? So I don't know what he needs, all that stuff, right? And he's like, yeah, just send it to me with, he said, put crop marks on it, obviously on the outside. And then he said, and then just add roll and cut lines onto the file. I was like, add roll and cut lines. He's like, yeah, it'll be fine. Don't worry about it. And I was like, okay, dude, that doesn't seem like it makes sense. And then same for the crop marks. I was like, how do I do the crop marks? Like, is there a specific way? He's like, oh, you can just add them. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, just literally put circles on the outside and it'll be fine. I was like, none of this makes any sense to me at all. I was like, how is this supposed to work? So I do it and I deliver it to him and I was like, I'm just going to watch this because none of this made any sense to me. Sure enough, he takes my file, he loads it in there, he sends it, it reads my 8 crop marks I put in there and it cuts them all perfectly. I was like, this is so ridiculous, because it seemed from the outside looking in, it seems like it's going to be more complex than it is. Maybe what the problem is there.
Yeah. No, it's I'm glad you said that. It's pretty simple to operate. And in fact, one of the things we're proud of is that people who buy that device, right? A lot of our competitors and things, they're kind of closed ecosystems, right? You kind of have to work in their workflow kind of thing. And now, you put somebody else's cutter on it. It's like, well, how am I going to deal with this? We can open 42 file formats or something. So there's a lot of times, our philosophy is we don't come in and make you work in our workflow. We just kind of look around and go, okay, this is how you're doing it. All right, yeah, we can open those and we can just drop a cutter in. And from a training standpoint, right, their current staff is already used to doing things a certain way. Yep. We don't really need to disrupt that, right? We can just bring it to our cutter and like you said, open it up, there's dots on it, go, right? Keep it really simple.
I think especially for a lot of these smaller shops, it's one that fits really well with your existing equipment, right? Even if that's other cutter equipment, even if you have other cutters, I just feel like once they got it in there, and even when I walked through it with them after they had done it, right, I just was like, how does this work? I've never used one, right? So we're going through it, and I just thought like, man, it just seems like there's not a whole lot extra you guys need to do on your side to get it working. So it's cool having seen a lot of equipment, right? Like we've gotten a lot of demos from competitor equipment, even stuff that we don't sell to. And it's just been like, this just seems when people add it, I don't usually hear from them, which I always joke is the good sign on my side, right? Like if you're the one like selling the equipment, if I don't hear back from the customer, usually I assume they must be rocking and rolling. So I'm happy. So that seems good. What are you guys' like most commonly sold equipment, and what sizes are customers most getting?
Yeah, so the one that's behind me, right, that's kind of our most popular configuration. So that's our SXC 1732. So that's going to give you a 5x10 essentially a 5x10 work area. So it's slightly oversized, 64 by 124. So that really covers all of your roll material, right, up to 64-inch wide, and then all your board work, full 5x10 sheet. So that's kind of our fastest, most productive unit. So it is the most popular, but we do offer some other sizes. From a tooling and the gantry and head is the same on every model. It's just the frame size that changes. So we do a half-size table, so that's kind of gives you a 5x5, and then we go bigger, right? So 10x10 is kind of our largest. We do a 10x5 that's just the other way, right? So the gantry is the long way.
Oh, interesting.
But I would say typically it would be the 1732. This model is the most popular. The 10x10 for certain applications, 3.2 meter work is that makes perfect sense. Those would be the two most popular.
What is the reason someone would get the rotated gantry? Just because I haven't.
For 3.2 meter, right? So if if they've got a printer that does 10-foot rolls, right? You need a way to put a 10-foot roll on to process it.
Okay.
So
just which way you load it basically is all that matters there.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Exactly.
That's good to know. What is like training, installation, all that kind of look like once they get the machine? Do you guys handle that? How do repairs work? How's all that work?
Yeah. So that's definitely an area I think we're a bit unique, right? So the machine is a steel welded single piece frame. So when it shows up, it's essentially assembled, right? So that means in a half a day, our technician has it up and running, confirm calibration and all that stuff. But he's going to spend the week there with the customer. So, the next 3 days is on-site, training in their workflow, right? We prefer to do it that way because the machine's so darn versatile, right? That, this customer bought it for specific things. So we want to make sure that really when we leave, right, that they're in production, right? They have confidence, built around the platform. So as well as that steel welded frame making us a very low cost of ownership machine because there's not a lot of maintenance and things to do, it gives us the time to really spend in training, right? To spend on site in training. Now, like any training, right, you're kind of drinking from the fire hose, right? You're getting a lot of information and even what seems like a long time, but right, that goes quickly. We further support, obviously, after the install. So every machine has, the standard 12-month warranty bumper to bumper, but we also include a elite phone support package. So basically what that gives the customer is access to a Colex employee. Right, we do a 1 hour turnaround. So if you open a case and say, "Hey, I just got my cutter. I love it. I forgot what the guy said." Right, it doesn't have to be a break fix thing. It can be anything. Within an hour, a Colex tech is going to get back to you. Maybe they'll send you a video. Maybe they'll log in and show you how to make a profile or whatever. So that program, I think, really kind of helps customers get over that learning curve. What's also included in that is unlimited scheduled training sessions. So what we learned over the years, right? Customers buy the device, great training, they're killing it, right? They're really happy. And then that operator that was trained, leaves, quits, whatever. And the owner is sitting there going, well, I don't have anybody trained now to actually run this device, right? Like, now what do I do? And honestly, there's a cost to sending somebody back for a week, right, to retrain somebody new. So we instituted that program in that phone support to basically say, well, if you have maybe you hire somebody you think they're going to be good in your off time, right? You schedule a 2-hour session. We can log in. We pretty much have a whole training course we can go through remotely to get that person, kind of up to speed. And you can, if that guy works out and then 2 weeks he leaves, right, you just do it again with somebody else. So there's no limit to how many of those sessions you can schedule. So we've seen that program. It's included in the first year, but many customers, it's so inexpensive, a few $100s a month, that they can keep that program. So, hey, when something happens, if you can get a tech on the line and have it fixed in an hour, that's the difference between getting that job out that day or not, right? So
the other part, I think that's a great idea, first of all. But second of all, I think that's also helpful for what we talked about at the beginning, which is when someone buys it, right, for a very specific application, right? So when they're listening to the training, they're like, oh, here's the 4 things I really need to know, right? And then 2 weeks later, they get a job that's not what they intended. They're like, turns out I was not paying attention to that section. You're like, I might need to call them and find out how I do this. So I think we see that all the time, even on print equipment, right? Where someone will just be like, oh, I was paying attention for this section because I knew I was going to use it, but now I need it. Now I need it for the other thing, and I don't know how to do it. So I think it's a great idea. But so you guys handle all the installation, you handle the service. The software is your guys' software then that it's running, is what it sounds like?
It's a partnership we've had for many years. Yeah.
And then the other question I wanted to ask, so we talked about the stuff that a lot of people use it for, right? The basic stuff. What's some of the more like oddball stuff that you've seen out there? Obviously, you brought up the T-Rex that's behind us here, or the dinosaur. But what other oddballs have you seen out there?
So what we've seen, obviously, we're at a sign show, right? So this is an important vertical for us.
Yep.
But because of the build and the quality of the machine, it's kind of built to run 24/7, which means we can go into industrial applications, right? So those are always unique and interesting, right? They typically don't do 100 things like we do in sign and display. They do 1 or 2 things, but it's like high volume, high production. So yeah, those to me are always the interesting accounts. Like we had one person that was just cutting Mylar.
Okay.
Just to make giant bags out of Mylar. Like it was an industrial application. They would fill these bags to transport them around the country. But literally that's all our Sharp Cut does every day. It's just, and it's in line, right? So it's coming on, it's cutting it out. And so, the equipment can really do things that, you don't really think about.
The one, I didn't set the cameras up properly to see this, but we're sitting on a table that obviously was cut on your guys' machine, right? But trade shows are a crazy example of this too, because even if you walk around and see all of the big standing signage is now, before I feel like a lot of that was, plastic frame, slide a sign in there, right? Which is most common. Now all of them are going to this. I don't even know what the name of this material is, but so this is I should know because 3A makes it.
Yeah, this is from 3A. It's Polar. Which is it's a corrugated essentially. This is 1/2 inch on this table. I'm sure you'll get a shot of it at some point. This is becoming a really popular product. Like you said, now there are standoffs that are made out of this, right? Because you can just cut it out. It's light, it's paper, so it's easy to dispose of when you're done. It's pretty inexpensive material as opposed to sending a plastic frame and then sliding in some harder graphic.
Trying to get it back when you're done versus these are just print them and then at the show they're pretty much done.
So for ISA, we've been doing this for years. If you end up over in the food court, you'll see about 30 of these tables. So it's something that we always do. We did it once, and the association here just always says, you're doing the tables again, right? Because it's easy for them, right? It gives people somewhere to sit and eat, or stand, I should say, and eat, and then they're easy to just throw out at the end of the show.
In 2026, G2G and Wensco will launch 2 new products into the market. The one is the United Stick, which is a high efficiency, affordable, and reliable product for your sign and lighting projects. The second is LumaLink, which has a power pin design that's made to be cut and done anywhere in the field or in your shop. This is for small channel letters or any large projects. Check them out at Wensco.com. This episode is brought to you by Arlon Graphics, trusted for innovative high-performance cast vinyls. Check out their newest product, DPF V9500, a non-PVC polyurethane wall film built to tackle ultra-textured surfaces like a pro. More exciting new products to come soon from Arlon. Check them all out at Wensco.com. So there's 2 questions we asked to kind of end the show. So the first one is, if a customer is in the market, right, for a flatbed cutter or router, and they're kind of hesitant to pull the trigger, what would you guys kind of say to nudge them along in that process?
Yeah, a lot of what we talked about, today is really looking at the kind of work they're doing, right, and what would this capability allow them to get to. I'm not the kind of person that wants to sell on hope, right? That's not a strategy. But like I said, there's a lot of times customers, they have great customers, and they're just missing work because they don't have the right equipment on the floor. So that, to me, that's the most important one, because it's the easy one.
Yeah, the one I always harp on is most shops don't have a good way of tracking what jobs they're not getting. So 100%. Oftentimes and I'm not talking about you quote a job and you lose it. What I'm talking about is a job you don't even quote in the first place. Right. And oftentimes that's the one you miss the most of, and you don't often have a good way of tracking it unless the lady at the front counter is saying like, oh yeah, I had 4 people come in today asking for this, so just be aware.
Well, and what's interesting is a lot of times they are quoting, and they know they're quoting high because they don't have the equipment to do it. Like they almost know they're going to lose it because they just can't be profitable, doing it manually. Yep. Right? Because they either have to outsource it or they're going to spend hours and hours, hiring a couple temps to come in and help cut it or whatever. So it's like they sort of know, right? Yeah. They're quoting on it, and they're, why do I lose every time, right?
Yeah. I always think like there's so many times where I even joke about this at home, right? Where if you've thought about buying something more than 3 times, it's probably time to buy it, right? And this could be something really simple, right? It can be like, oh, I need this random thing to clean at my house, right? And it's like, if I've thought about this 3 times, I should probably just do it, right? And oftentimes we'll deal with customers where they've been talking about this, and you'd be like, dude, we've been going on 18 months now with you talking about this. Like, obviously you need it. So I don't know what your hesitation is, but what I'm telling you is we deal with a lot of customers that don't have one and then get one, and no one's ever bought one and been like, oh, that was a poor decision on my part. Like, that's never happened. Like I always tell them, it's never one time happened where someone's like, oh, that was a mistake. And that goes for a lot of equipment, but cutters is a big one too. I mean, and I just feel like a lot of times there's so much hesitation to get into it. I think they're just nervous and they drag their feet on it.
Yeah, and then you want to make sure that you're, I've done this a million times, right? You want to get something and you're like, it's a little expensive, so you kind of buy the cheaper one, and then you realize like a year or 2 later, like I really should have just, and then you throw those out and then you buy the one you should have bought the first time. Yeah. So, our cutter is kind of the best price performance ratio in the market, right? For every dollar, you're getting a lot of productivity and a lot of versatility. So, don't just look at the sticker price, right? You kind of have to look at the whole picture. So that you're not going, that's great, it helped, but now I got to go back and buy the right thing, right? Yeah,
buy once, cry once, I think is what they say. So, I mean, that leads us right into the final question I have, which is, if someone's in the market for one and they're looking at some of your competitors' products and your products, what do you think separates a Colex machine from some of the competitors out in the market?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one is we're made right here in the U.S., right? So it's not only the manufacturing, it's all the service, all the support. Colex doesn't third-party any sort of the support or service. They're all Colex employees, right? So, we're here on install day, but we're also here year 2, year 3, year 4, and, we take care of our customers. The build of the platform, I think, has a lot to do with it, that we can kind of give that customer the ability to pivot into whatever market they find a profitable way to make some money, right? I mean, we saw it during, COVID, right? I hate to bring up bad things, but, we had lots of what I would call print sign guys, right? That now had nothing to print, but were able to pivot and start manufacturing, acrylic things, moving into textile to make face masks and all that. Like, if you had asked those guys 2 years prior, would you make a face mask? They would have laughed at you, right? But this kind of equipment, whatever configuration you initially get, you can always add tools. So it allows you to pivot into other markets as they happen, right? As they happen. So to me, that's, pretty important. And then the last thing I would just say is that ease of use, right? To be able to scale, like you can start out kind of manually doing things, but, through software and connectivity, we can really automate that to a full production with as little touches as possible.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. The only thing I would add is if they're quoting out a competitor that's, one of the ones that's here at the show, right? That's one thing. But the one we're running into even more lately is just a random import, right? Some name you've never heard of. And it's like, I've never seen this before. And if you're out there and you're evaluating a machine that's clearly being imported, just know that whatever warranty is on the bottom of that thing, it doesn't mean a single thing to you. And I can tell you from people who have seen customers buy one of these machines and it comes in and it's super cheap and they make it through just fine for 3 months, and then they need a part and it's a disaster. So just know that whatever warranty or support they put on those machines that are being imported, it doesn't mean a single thing to them. They haven't even been around long enough for that number to matter. So no, I think this was good. Hopefully this was useful to people looking at at Cutter routers, or maybe knowing that that's going to be in their future for them, and knowing kind of what's out there and what's available and what they can do. So I appreciate you coming on, answer my questions, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. Yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one. So goodbye.
Bye-bye.